Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a question that literally split Christianity in two. If you're saved by faith alone, then what's the point of being a good person? In a time when the church taught you could earn your way to heaven, John Calvin's answer completely changed the game.
So let's just put it right out there. This is the paradox that has kept people talking for centuries. If faith is all you need for salvation, why bother with all the good works? Are they just optional extras? It's a huge question, and it's the very problem Calvin set out to solve.
And you know what makes this so difficult is that the Bible itself seems to push both ideas. You've got passages saying salvation is a free gift, no strings attached. But then you've got others saying God rewards good deeds, so what gives? Well, in his massive work, The Institutes of the Christian Religion, Calvin walks us through his answer step by step.
To really get Calvin's solution, you first have to understand how he saw the problem. And for him, it all starts with God's law. Okay, so Calvin's starting point is pretty intense. He says that the standard set by God's law, think the Ten Commandments, isn't just, hey, try your best. Nope, it's absolute 100% perfection. And since, as he says, no one of the kind is to be found, that means all of us are immediately stuck in an impossible situation.
So you see, for Calvin, the law isn't some ladder you can climb to get into heaven. It's more like a mirror. A mirror isn't there to clean you up. It's there to show you that you're dirty. It reveals all our flaws and basically forces us to admit we can't do this on our own. We have to look for a solution somewhere else.
And that brings us to the other side of the coin. If the law only points out our failures, how can anyone ever be considered righteous by God? This is where Calvin shifts gears from the law to the gospel.
His entire argument really hinges on this one word, justification. Now, for Calvin, justification isn't a process of slowly becoming a good person. It's basically a legal ruling. It's like God as a judge who bangs the gavel and declares you righteous, not because of anything you did, but because you've been given someone else's perfect record.
And he uses this really powerful metaphor of being clothed. Imagine you're standing before a judge, totally guilty. Then, someone else steps in and drapes a perfect, spotless robe over you. For Calvin, that robe is Christ's righteousness. You didn't earn it, you didn't make it. It's a gift you get just by having faith.
So you can see the logical chain he's building. First, there's the problem. We can't meet the law's perfect standard. Then, the solution, God's grace, which we grab onto through faith. That faith leads to justification, that legal declaration that we're righteous. And here's the absolute key. Notice where good works come in. They're at the very end. They aren't part of the process of being saved, they're the result of it.
And this brings us right back to where we started. If we're saved by faith alone, and it's already a done deal, then what are good works for?
Calvin's answer is a resounding yes. They have a purpose. It's just not the one most people think. Their job isn't to earn salvation. That's already taken care of. Instead, good works have a totally new and really important job to do.
And this right here is the heart of his argument, and it's a beautiful analogy. Faith is the root of the tree. That's what gives it life. Good works, they're the fruit. Fruit doesn't make a tree alive. Fruit is the proof that the tree is alive. In the same way, good works are the natural, inevitable evidence of a life that's been changed by grace.
He breaks it down into 3 reasons why God now accepts these imperfect works. 1. God accepts the person first because of their faith. 2. He generously decides to see value in their works even though they're flawed. And 3. He pardons all the imperfections in those works. So get this, even the acceptance of our good works is an act of grace. Calvin points to the story of Cornelius in the Bible to make his case. The story says his prayers and his good deeds were pleasing to God. But Calvin totally flips the usual interpretation. He says it's not that Cornelius's good works earned him God's favor. It's the other way around. His works were pleasing because God's grace was already working in him, prompting him to do those things in the first place.
Okay, but what about other parts of the Bible? I mean, what about the Apostle James, who straight up says that man is justified by works and not by faith alone? That sounds like a direct contradiction, right? How does Calvin deal with that?
Well, Calvin's move here is brilliant. He says, look, they're not contradicting each other at all, because they're answering 2 totally different questions. He argues that Paul is asking the legal question, how is a person declared righteous in God's courtroom? But James is asking the practical question, how do you prove out in the real world that your faith is genuine?
So for James, the point is all about demonstration.
If someone says, oh yeah, I have faith, but their life shows zero good works, zero compassion, zero change, well, James says that person's claim is empty. Why? Because the lack of works proves their faith wasn't the real deal to begin with.
And this gets to a huge distinction between a real, living faith and what James calls a dead faith. Calvin says that just believing God exists, the kind of belief that even demons have, as James points out, that's not saving faith. True saving faith is a living thing that changes you from the inside out and will absolutely produce the fruit of good works.
So when you look at it through Calvin's eyes, there's no real fight between Paul and James. The debate was never really faith versus works. It was always about a genuine, living faith versus a fake, dead one. And for Calvin, a true, saving faith will always produce a transformed life. It's not an option. It's a certainty.
And that's really the big takeaway from all this. Calvin completely reframes the conversation. The question isn't faith or works. The real question is, what kind of faith do you have? Is it a living, breathing reality that changes everything? Or is it just an empty claim? And that's a thought that challenges us to look past the label and look for the fruit.